toss-up races which could fall to either party. Now, one of those toss-ups getting a lot of attention is the Pennsylvania Senate race, where Republican Pat Toomey, himself a former congressman, is now in a very tight race with Congressman Joe Sestak. The current Real Clear Politics average has Toomey leading Sestak by just 2 points, well within the margin of error. In recent history, Pennsylvania has been a blue state. Long-term Republican and current Senator Arlen Specter left the GOP last year, becoming a Democrat. A lot of folks think that was about avoiding a GOP primary challenge from Toomey. Then he wound up losing the Democratic primary to Sestak. Well, Pat Toomey is Chris Wallace's exclusive guest today on Fox News Sunday, where he dismissed his opponent's attempts to compare him to controversial Republican Senate candidate Christine O'Donnell in neighboring Delaware.
Oh, I don't think people fall for that. I mean, you know, this is pretty silly. Joe Sestak is so worried about his own record. He's trying to run against somebody that I've never met, that I don't agree with. You know, who's really extreme here? The fact is, Joe Sestak is to the left of Nancy Pelosi. That's no exaggeration.
Toomey has held on to a lead for much of this campaign season, but Sestak has been making a comeback in recent weeks. This makes this anyone's game going into November 2nd. Earlier, I sat down with Chris for his thoughts on this key race. Chris, you had a couple of major candidates on today, a Republican and a Democrat. Let's start with Pat Toomey out of Pennsylvania. What did you make of his explanation of the fact that the polls have really tightened in that race in the last few days?
They really have. I mean, Labor Day, he was leading by 8.5 points. Now he's leading by less than 2 points. He says it's a natural tightening, and there's one other interesting factor apparently in this, and that is the fact that Christine O'Donnell, the very controversial Republican Senate candidate in neighboring Delaware, advertises on Philadelphia television, because that covers part of the state, and the opponent to Toomey, Joe Sestak, is saying Toomey's an extremist, like Sarah Palin, like the Tea Party, like Christine O'Donnell. There's some evidence that his linkage to her is hurting Toomey, even though he went to some pains at Fox News Sunday to say, never met the woman, don't agree with her on a lot of things. He seems fairly confident, though, that in the end he's going to win. But the race has really tightened up dramatically, and, of course, Democrats have a big registration advantage in Pennsylvania.
They do. And you asked him about an issue that a lot of GOP candidates have to answer for. If they want to extend all the Bush tax cuts, where they're going to make up for that loss as it impacts the deficit and the debt. What was his response?
Well, I got to say, Pat Toomey, who was the head of the Club for Growth, a very anti-tax group here in Washington for 4 years, gave a much better answer than some other Republican candidates. He really went through a variety of spending issues, entitlements, and said that he believes that, in fact, cutting all these taxes will boost the economy and produce more revenues. But, yes, we still have too big a government, and he had some particular areas, one of them, for instance, banning earmarks, which he said leads to all kinds of appropriations well beyond the earmarks. And also he talked about privatizing Social Security, not for anybody that's close to retirement or in retirement, but, you know, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds. So I thought he had, you can agree or disagree, but he had a lot more specific answers than a lot of candidates.
Certainly did. All right.